Hello everyone. Today I'll be talking about argumentation and reasoning. Let me share my screen. Yes, so argumentation is basically reason giving. You argue through reasons, or at least that is the expectation. It's not necessary that every time we talk to someone, we agree with them. In fact, a lot of times disagreements happen. And in fact, a lot of times disagreements happen because there is the person that we are talking to is looking at things from a different perspective. Both could be right? So it is not always simple to assume that you are right and the other person is being irrational. But we need to understand in depth what exactly is argumentation and how can we argue well. Why do we actually argue? We argue sometimes to justify what we are doing or what we think should be done, sometimes to refute what others are claiming, to persuade people to explain things. Maybe we argue with others or with ourselves to understand a topic or understand an issue in depth, or maybe to find a consensus among multiple individuals. So we argue for multiple reasons, these and probably many more. What is an argument? Before we go into the structure of the argument, let us understand that argument does not stand in isolation. You need to understand that the position that I am taking, or the understanding that I have, or the say, if you want to understand what is happening in Afghanistan right now, where the Taliban has actually taken over the whole country. This argument, the arguments about whether it is right or wrong, or whether Taliban is good for Afghanistan or not, all this is embedded in historical context. That needs to be understood if we want to actually make a good argument. The arguments are usually for a specific audience. If I am talking to a group of priests about, say, the origin of Earth, origin of, say, the whole universe, it will be a different kind of argument, as opposed to if I'm talking to a group of physicists and arguing about exactly the same topic, origin of universe. Arguments are place and time sensitive, and there could be different interpretations in different times. For example, sati or johar was considered legal, and in fact, it was considered good for the society. But after certain time, during the British era, a lot of reformers actually fought against that evil and made forced the government to make it illegal. And then the consensus built around it that okay, it is not a good thing. So the same thing which during, say, the Rajput rule in Rajasthan, that was considered to be a tradition, a culture, something to be followed, became hated now. Or the same thing can be said about if you're a gay person, if you're a transgender person, the way you would be treated in, say, pre-1950s versus you would be treated in 2021, it is very different. So arguments are place and time sensitive, and arguments are often political. As is the famous saying, one country's terrorist is another country's freedom fighter. So you need to understand that what is the political position of the person that you are talking. Now let's look at the structure of the argument. Basically, argument in an argumentation, what we are doing is we are making certain claims. We are making certain claims. These claims are based on reasons, although it can be illogical and unreasonable also. But that's the assumption that if we are making an argument, there would be claims, and these claims are based on reasons, which usually we call bridge or warrant. And this reason derives from the evidence that is there, right? That the evidence that is presented by the person who is making an argument. And then there are assumptions involved. How these are linked and what exactly these are, we will cover it right away. So an argument is basically a collection of propositions that together make at least one claim. At least one claim. Oftentimes there are more than one claims, right? Now, an argument is a set of propositions, we will see what it is, which establish a claim based on evidence and reasoning, based on evidence and reasoning. A set of proposition which is aimed at persuading people through reasoning. Now, these set of there are subsets of propositions, multiple propositions are involved that okay, something is or something is not. In an argument, a subset of propositions get called a premise. And these premises, these subset of propositions, they provide support for some other propositions which are called conclusions. So there are premises on the basis of, and there are multiple premises, multiple subsets of propositions on the basis of which we actually reach a conclusion, which again are some other propositions that, okay, because it is like this, hence we can conclude that, okay, this is the case. One usually starts with an assumption. Why I've highlighted this assumption and bridge or warrant in a light color is because usually these are hidden. What we end up seeing is evidence or claim. That is more in most arguments, it will be clearly visible, but these reasoning and the assumption will be hidden. One can start with an assumption about, say, what is the knowledge of the audience. If I'm, as I give the argument about talking to physicists is different as opposed to talking to priests or talking to farmers about the same topic. When I'm talking to farmers about, say, origin of universe, their knowledge level in that domain is very different. While I am a teacher in a university and I'm talking to farmers about agriculture, then they became the domain experts. The way I want to talk to them will differ. So we start with the assumptions, say, about the knowledge of the audience or about what truth is. Assumption is usually in the background and not spoken. Then we have evidence which is presented. This evidence is presented in form of statements. It could be drawn from facts, data, figures, anecdotes. There could be narratives, interviews, etc., etc. And these statements need to be then connected. There are these multiple statements, multiple small propositions. These cannot be picked in isolation, and you can make random claims. These need to be put in certain order. They need to be connected with each other. You need to show a logical connection between multiple pieces of evidence. And on the basis of those connections, from those connections of among different pieces of evidence, you reason through and reach claims. I'm saying claims, usually there are more than one claim in a regular conversation that we have, right? So let's take an example. So say there is evidence one, there is evidence two that has been presented. Now these evidence one and two are linked, and together I can deduce that XYZ is true. There is evidence three, which says that ABC is true. I can reduce that. Hence, now I am combining XYZ and ABC, and we reach a claim. It is actually an inference. A claim is an inference which is deduced from available facts. Now, assumptions and bridges are, as I said, are often implicit or hidden. What you see for sure is the claim, because that's why people are arguing to make certain claims. And if the person is actually not highly irrational or dogmatic, we will see a lot of evidence also in the arguments. Well, the quality of evidence or even the truth of what is presented as evidence, that may be problematic, especially in the era of fake news. What gets presented as fact may need to be checked. Yet, these are the easiest to identify in any kind of argument. A claim ideally should be an inference that has been deduced from evidence that is presented. Let me repeat it. A claim ideally should be an inference which has been deduced based on reasoning from the evidence that has been presented. And these inferences can be strong or weak. As we have covered earlier, that you can make a very strong claim, which is a very general statement, versus you can make guarded claims. She is beautiful versus I think she is beautiful versus I think she has a beautiful smile. So these are like reduce the generalizability of your claim. So inferences that you are drawing, the claims that you are making, can be strong or weak. And reaching these inferences is not straightforward. It often requires a mental jump from evidence to claim. There is a mental jump involved. That a good argument will actually make it clear. While this is hidden, a good argument will make the reasoning very, very clear. Right? Now, so what would be the essentials of an argument? So the essentials of an argument would be a set of evidence, which is usually present in form of facts or data points. There will be premises, which are a set of propositions, which are derived from evidence. Conclusions, which again are a set of propositions, conclusions or claims. And then there will be evidential link between the premise and conclusion. That is, so the premises should be, provide a good evidence towards the conclusion for the argument to be strong. And that's how it is. Claims again can be, if it is a simple argument, it will be one claim. Usually we are talking about multiple claims. We are engaged in complex argumentation. So now we will take an example and close with that. If you guys remember, if you people remember, during the early times of Corona lockdown, COVID-19 lockdown in India, we had seen that there were cases of Tablighi Jamaat members who had been, there was a huge media trial of these people, and claims were made that these people had congregated in Delhi despite lockdown orders. Several of them had tested positive for COVID-19. Hence, Muslims were responsible. Muslims were responsible, not these limited number of people. There was a larger conspiracy theory that was floated that Muslims were responsible for spread of coronavirus in India. And a lot of these people had come from outside India. Now, this Bombay High Court, actually, this case went for a long time, and Bombay High Court Aurangabad bench actually was hearing, and I'm showing you here the clips of not the clips, but the news item from that time. Bombay High Court slams government Tablighis a scapegoat to warn Muslims. It asked the government to fix the damage. The reality was that these people, when evidence was actually looked in the court realized, the judges realized that no, they did not break the lockdown. They had congregated much before the corona lockdown was announced, or even the first cases of coronavirus were announced. The court found that these people were stuck because suddenly the flights were banned and everything was banned and they were not allowed to move. And since there was a fear of the virus, or they had some relatives or they knew people, they moved around because of that. It was not that they were, it was called a corona bomb. So when you look closely, you see that the claims that have been made and the evidence that has been presented here, even the evidence that has been presented that they had uh, uh, violated the lockdown and they were spreading coronavirus, etc., were found to be false. The claims were found to be false. The evidence was found to be false. The link between evidence to claim, although there were facts that these people had congregated, these people had been congregated in the same place for more than 50 years. Every year, more than 50 years, they had been coming to the same place at the same time of the year. Incidentally, this time there was coronavirus scare and some of them tested positive, and then this whole theory was debunked. So this is what I will say is actually the case where we have established what exactly is argumentation, what is the structure of an argument, and we will follow up with the part 2 of this uh, theme of argumentation and how we can actually challenge anyone's argument.